All right, let's hope this is working. When you hop in here, give me a little wave. Let me know that you can see me and you can hear me. Instagram has made so many changes lately that I'm not sure if this is working right now. All right, we got a wave. Fantastic. Hi. All right. Gotta love technology changes. No, in reality, I don't love them. I'm not gonna pretend like I love them. So I'm gonna wait a minute or two, let people flow on in. You can give a wave if you're here. You can say where you're from. For those who don't know, I am in San Diego, which is usually nice and sunny and warm, but as you can tell by my clothes right now, not so warm right now. I see my mom's here. Hi, Mom. Hi, Rachel. Thanks for the waves, everybody. Thanks for joining me. It is 10 o'clock here in San Diego, so I will say good morning. For many of you, it is already afternoon or even later, so whatever time it is, I hope you're having a good day. We got Arizona. Where else? Northern Ireland. Good evening. Yeah, it's probably pretty late there. Thanks for tuning in. Snowy Michigan. All right. Yep, Rachel's here in Philly. Tallahassee, Florida. So what is it, like 1 o'clock there, I think? Around 1 o'clock. Iowa, Arizona. Fantastic. Mexico City. Well, I'm very happy to have all of you. We put out a request for questions in the email that went out a few days ago, and I got a whole bunch and printed them so I wouldn't miss anything for you guys. Oh, it's 7 o'clock at night in Madrid, Spain. Fantastic. So if you have questions today, there will be a point when I tell you to ask them, or you can kind of ask them as you're going, and Rachel is here logged in as the Journey account, and she can always answer a lot of your questions, but I'm just going to kind of work my way through the questions in front of me that people asked, and there was 2 questions that came up over and over and over again, so I will probably answer them now and again at the end, but if you have a question that I don't answer, feel free to ask that. That's what today's for. So we took a break. This was supposed to be not a break week, but as most of you know at this point, I am pregnant and tired and exhausted, and it's a holiday here in America this week, and so we just kind of needed a little hot minute to break and pause the filming, pause everything, but I didn't want to disappoint you and leave you hanging on a Tuesday, so figured we'd do a little live Q&A. So let's hop right on in all these questions. The most asked questions are answered in the weekly emails, which means not everyone's scrolling all the way down and reading them. Rachel and I work really hard on those, so read the entire email and you'll have the answer to a lot of your questions. The fabric requirements for the pillowcases have been in many of the emails. So it's 4 different fabrics, and I'm not going to tell you what the requirements are right now because we've said them so many times and I don't want to risk messing them up, but they're in the email, and you can get them there. And then where is the pattern? We've also said the pattern is coming next week. So you will get the pattern 1 week from today on Tuesday in the morning that we're starting it. And part of the reason for that is the video is really integral with the pattern this time, and I don't want you to just hop into the pattern without the video. And this is a bonus and it's a freebie, and everyone loves freebies, but it's not really the reason you signed up. The reason you signed up is because it's a skill builder, and there is another skill specifically in the Gemstones pillowcase that I want to make sure that I go over and you learn properly, because we're going to use that skill in Nebula. I hope that makes sense. So that covers the first two questions pretty well. So one of the other questions was about the kit. We partnered with Pink Door Fabrics when I first figured out that I was doing the pillowcases a couple months ago, and they ordered enough for hundreds of you to be able to do it. There are some other shops who have done kits, but at the time we just didn't have the information to communicate to all shops, so we worked with one shop. So if you ordered from them, you're getting the exact fabric that I used, but some other shops have done it. So if you didn't order, you can still order from Pink Door. I think they still have some in stock, or you can reach out to the shop that you're doing Nebula with, especially if you're international. I know shipping's a big deal, so some of the international shops have decided to make the kits. And keep in mind, you also don't have to do the exact fabric that I did. There was a question on the fabric. Someone thought that I used cotton candy here, and then they said their kit from Pink Door came, and it was the dove. It is the dove. I didn't use the cotton candy. It does kind of blend with the Hexy Rainbow, and that was my intention. If you want more of a contrast, you can go ahead and substitute this for the cotton candy if you'd like. But I specifically chose these fabrics because they work well. 3 of them are in the background of Nebula. This is the only one that's not, and that was the one that gave you a little pop of color, but it's in the Nebula quilt itself. So this is the Gemstones pillowcase, and you will get the pattern 1 week from today. And it doesn't take a lot of fabric, and the fabric requirements are for a pair. So keep in mind, if you're just making one just to test it, you don't even need that much. The fabric requirements are for a pair. And we did also provide what the fabric requirements will be if you like king size pillowcases, and those directions will be in the pattern as well. So standard pillowcase, which is what I use, and king as well. Alrighty, back to the list of questions. Okay, I'm a shop owner and have sold a number of Nebula Block of the Months. I want to offer the pillowcase kit to my customers. How do they get the pattern if they didn't join Journey to Nebula? Good question. So if you happen to be watching this and you didn't join Journey, you missed the cutoff. We gave plenty of months of notice and whatnot to let people in. We are going to be releasing this as a PDF download for sale purchase on January 1. And it will be in my shop, and we will place a link to that at the time. So if you missed out, don't worry, you can still get it. It's just going to be a downloadable paid purchase in January. Someone just asked, will there be a kit for this quilt? I don't know. I don't know any shops that are doing it yet, and the answer is probably not, because I didn't give them notice because I didn't have enough notice myself. The fabric requirements for this are 14 2.5-inch strips and background. I don't remember the amount of background off the top of my head. So I designed it that way because a lot of the projects on Journey were using 2.5-inch strips, and I wanted you to have a way to use up leftovers that you had around, and I know that's a common size. So not that I know of, but I will give you the SKUs. We could probably do that next week, specifically the exact SKUs, in case you want to know what they are, so that you can match it identically. But I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys do it in all different fabrics. I knew that the SKUs were really important for the pillowcases so that they matched Nebula, but it's not as important that a random lap quilt that's probably not going to live in the same room as Nebula matches Nebula. Mine just happened to be in true colors because that's what stash was in front of me when I started making it. Okay. I love your patterns and working with your rulers. It's made me much more confident that I'm ready for Nebula. Fantastic. Would love recommendations on how to organize and store the block sets for Nebula. What do you suggest? Well, I gave a little sneak peek earlier this week that if your shop is getting the package from Free Spirit, which most are, this is what your fabrics are going to look like when they come each month. And this is like a sealed bag. It doesn't have a Ziploc or anything. It's literally machine sealed. So when you open it, it's open. But it'll come like this. And then your pattern, you'll have one of these for each month and list the fabric on the back in case you have an oops, and all the directions on the inside. And what I did is I just went ahead and cut the pieces. This is month 3, for example, and I put them back in the bag. Pieces back in the bag. I'm starting to work on filming those videos for you for next year, so I've already done all my cutting for the first 3 months, and I just have it sitting in the bag till I get ready to start doing the rest of the filming for you guys. So that's, but since you're going to mainly be doing one block at a time, I don't think organization is going to be too big of a thing, because you'll cut your pieces, you'll make your blocks, and then you'll be good. And then many of you have either purchased separately or your shop is giving this to you, this lovely little Tula project bag that she designed that is exclusive to Nebula. And this is where I suggest keeping your blocks from month to month so that you keep them all nice and super organized. So there's that. Okay. I hope you're feeling well in your pregnancy right now. Today is a good day. They're not all good days, I'm not gonna lie. My question is, for those of us doing the alternate background, do we just match up the fabric amounts of the alternate fabrics to the amounts of the original to know the order, or from the pictures provided, or do you have a chart? So they're listed in the same order that they're listed in the pattern. You can reference the picture as well as that. If you're confused, feel free to send me an email. We can provide more information. But we did put out in the Facebook group, as well as my Jaybird Facebook page and Instagram, the complete fabric requirements for the line work alternative background for Nebula. And so you can always go there to reference the pictures, and the fabrics are listed in order in the order that they're used in the pattern. Hope that makes sense. So this is the finishing book that will come with your pattern. And your background pieces, for instance, are labeled in here as, this might be backwards for you guys, but A, B, C, D, E, and then F. The way that I listed the fabrics on Instagram and Facebook is that same, A, B, C, D, E, F. So I hope that makes sense. And like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Here to help. Okay. Okay, thanks for leading us in this journey. My skills have improved so much, but what do I do if I cut something wrong on my Nebula quilt? Is there an oops, I made a mistake fat quarter pack? There is not a specific official oops, I made a mistake fat quarter pack. One of the things that I did to help you in case you do make a mistake is the back of every one of the monthly patterns has the exact SKUs. So whichever fabric you made an oops on, you can go ahead and get that one. The requirements for every month are fat eighths. And so a fat quarter oops pack would be like way too much fabric in the first place. And there's only a couple of fabrics that are duplicated between months here and there. Most fabrics are only used once. So even a fat eighth oops pack would be a ton of fabric. So there is no official oops pack. I would say work with the shop that you're working with. But at the same time, I have written the patterns in a generally forgiving way so that depending on how significant your oops miscut is, you're not using exactly the amount of fabric every month. You do have wiggle room, so you should be fine. But like I said, everything's on the back. I try and give you as much information as possible to empower you to be able to go forth and do this successfully. That's my goal. Okay. Is it possible to switch from queen size to king size and vice versa during Nebula? Absolutely. So you don't actually need to make a decision on what size Nebula you want till the end. You could go through all 9 months and then make a decision. And I'm pretty sure these fabrics are going to be around for a long time. It seems like Free Spirit's going to keep them as like a staple. So whether you make the queen, the king, or the lap, there's 3 options. It's the same 18 blocks in the same size. So if you ordered the kit, you're going to get enough fabric for the lap or the queen, not both. Sorry about that. But you, so like that's like the lap, and you'll just have a bunch of leftover fabrics. If you want to do the king, we've listed how much extra fabrics you need. I think it's around a little over 3 yards or about 3 yards. And, so you could order them now in case you want to make a king. You could wait. You could, kind of see, but like I said, I think the fabrics are going to be around. And you can make the decision once the blocks are done, which is a nice thing that you can kind of decide, as you're going. Okay. When you design a pattern, do you have a color or fabric in mind? Often, yes. Not always. Sometimes it's pattern first, then fabric. Sometimes it's fabric first, then pattern. If you've ever watched Tula, she always talks about she's fabric first, and that makes sense. She's a fabric designer. I'm sure a lot of fabric designers are like that. Being that I'm a pattern designer, it depends. Sometimes I see a line that I'm shown and all of a sudden super, super inspires the quilt. And other times I come up with an idea and then I'm searching for the right fabric. It's worked both ways. There have been some patterns, can't think of off the top of my head, but there have been some patterns that have like sat in the queue for a year or two until I find the right fabric, because, as much as we're taught when we're kids, don't judge a book by its cover, I will tell you all quilters judge a quilt by its cover quilt. And the first time you see it is what you get ironed into your brain. And if the cover fabric isn't right, the quilt will never take off and people will never like it. Even if they see it in a better fabric later, it's happened. So I really try and get the best fabric that's going to show off the pattern. Whether or not you decide to make it in the same fabric, totally up to you. But some of us are really good at seeing something in blues and yellows and being like, ooh, that'd be great, in pinks and greens. And some of us aren't. So I like to make sure that the cover fabric is always as strong as possible to show off the pattern. Because the reality is the pattern lasts longer than the fabric in my terms. you know, I'm not a fabric designer, and unless it's solids, fabric comes and goes, and which is great. We get new fabric all the time. But as a result, I have, you know, patterns that are 10 years old that are still selling, and the fabric's long gone, and they're still selling because the pattern itself is strong enough to work with, you know, any fabric. Hope that answers your question. Sometimes I'm a little long-winded. Sorry about that. Can you list the actual fabrics for gemstones? I already talked about that. I feel dumb for even asking. Don't feel dumb. My middle school math teacher always told me the only dumb question is the one you never ask. Feel dumb for even asking. When all the pieces are cut for a project and ready to assemble, how can you tell the bias of each piece? The tug method or flexibility? Bias is a little mystery to me. I understand all about easing a piece into one another with the bias, but how can you tell by just looking at a cut piece? I hope this question is clear. It is clear to me. So I will pull out some pieces and show you how I know and how I tell. Okay. So often if you have a print, it will be a hint. So like if you have a stripe like this and you know the stripe was on the grain, then you know that this piece is still on the grain because the grain is a grid that goes this way and this way. And then these two are the bias. But if you have a solid or something that is not as obvious, usually if you flip it over to the back, you can tell easier the threads on the back. I don't know how well this is going to like focus on here. Probably not enough to show you. But if you look at the back of fabric, you can see the threads. Also, if you have one side where threads are starting to come off like this, that means that's the straight grain side. And the side where none of that is happening are the bias sides. So I hope that answers your question. Next time we do this, we should ask for your name. I can't say like, I hope that answers your question, Sally, because I don't know who asked most of these questions. Reminder for myself. Okay. When piecing gazebo, I used pre-cuts and many of my hexagons were short. I centered them on most, but I lost the points on my first triangle. So my question is, should I put them to one corner? No, you should always center. Now, the gazebo was with 2.5 inch strips, not charm packs, so that you shouldn't have had this issue. Some people had this issue with Jawbreaker, but shouldn't have had that issue with gazebo. But when you're short, like in Jawbreaker, you always want to center so that you get enough seam allowance on both sides. If you go to one side or the other, you're going to risk not having enough fabric left in the seam allowance. And as many people have learned doing this, not all pre-cuts are created equal. And as much as I write my patterns for pre-cuts, I don't always use them myself. I cut a lot of my own 2.5 inch strips. That's one tip I think I've talked about in a previous video, is if I love a collection and I'm buying a lot of it and I know that it like lends itself to a 2.5 inch strip project, but I'm not sure which one I want to do. Say I bought a half yard of each piece or a yard of each piece, I will cut a 2.5 inch strip off of every single piece before I fold it and store it. And then I store those 2.5 inch strips in bins. I have tons of bins stacked up behind you. And I store them so that I have them ready to go when I'm super inspired and I can just sit down and sew and I don't even have to start cutting. So yeah, not all pre-cuts are created equal. Sorry about that. That is, I don't know why I'm apologizing. Not my fault. Every manufacturer is different and uses a different method. Some have the pink, some have the straight, some use a cutting tool, some use a laser. There's all different methods, and it unfortunately results in a variety of things. Do I cut my strips using a special ruler or machine? No, straight ruler. I am not a fan of machines. I think that you have to line things up so perfectly to be on grain. I tend to just have more accurate using my ruler. And if you've noticed in all of my videos that have been cutting videos that I've shown you guys, I'm always using the back of the mat. Never, ever, ever use your mat to measure. That's like one of the biggest tips I always share when I teach. Your mat is just not accurate. Every mat's a little different, even like every ruler's a little different, but every mat's a little different. The lines tend to be thicker than on your ruler, and it's just so easy to get off if you're using your mat. You can use it for general estimation of, oh, is this 18 inches? Is this a fat quarter? But I never use my mat for any actual cutting. I always use my ruler. Big tip there. Why do my patterns say 1/4 inch and my videos say scant? Because it's really hard to explain scant, 1/4 inch in a pattern. Plain and simple. I always say scant when I teach in person and when I teach online. we've put it in the pattern sometimes, and with testers and things, it just come back that it's a little more confusing. So we just stick with the standard quilting language, which is 1/4 inch in a pattern. But I always sew scant 1/4 inch, and I will say that that's kind of my rule for everything. I sew scant for 1/4 inch for almost everybody else's patterns that I sew as well, unless they specifically express not to be scant and why. I just find that scant 1/4 inch yields a more accurate block. Even if you're piecing a bunch of 9 patches and making a 12-inch block, scant 1/4 inch will give you a 12.5-inch block, as opposed to a 12 3/8 or 12 1/4. And especially if you're doing something for like a bee or in a guild, accuracy matters. If you get a whole bunch of blocks back and some of them are 12.5 and some are 12 1/4 and some are 12 3/4, it's kind of a pain in the butt. So I really like to be accurate, and scant 1/4 inch really helps with the accuracy. Why do you suggest using a 2.5 stitch length? My machine comes up with a 1.8 for piecing. First off, that's what my machine comes up with. Second, I've read it in some other patterns. I think 1.8 is a little too small, especially if you have to unsew and pick out stitches. That's tiny, tiny stitches. So I would use that if I was doing foundation paper piecing, so that the paper would tear easier. But for traditional rotary cut piecing like I primarily do, I think a 2.5 is perfectly fine. It's not too short, not too long. It kind of goes along with another question which someone asked, which was, I'm going to find it. Someone asked if I have any issues with bearding, which, if you don't know what that is when you press your seams open. Historically, if your stitch length was too long or the batting was not quality batting, which it was for everybody, certain number of, many years ago, it would come through, hence the name of a beard. Like, think of like Santa Claus and his beard popping through your seams. I don't have issues with bearding. I find 2.5 and quality batting, the combination of the two, I don't have bearding issues. So that is that. Someone just asked, I don't understand how to cut a strip with my cutting ruler without using the line on my cutting mat for reference. Okay, I don't know how well I'm going to be able to show this while we're front facing and not down, but give me a moment. I will try to explain how this works. Bear with me because I wasn't set up for this question. Okay. Just dump all this stuff on my chair. Okay, so here's your cutting mat. And let's find some fabric. All right. Normally I would say press your fabric before cutting, but like I said, wasn't planning on this. So here is some poms, some Tula Pink poms. And if you are using the lines on your mat, then you're probably lining this up straight to your lines, lining this up, for instance, on the 7 here, cut and cut. Okay, but that's not what I do or what I recommend doing. First off, I do cut on both sides, but when you're learning this method, it's sometimes easier to work on this side because you won't be tempted to use the lines. You have no lines right now, you can't use the lines. Okay, so like I said, I wasn't really prepared for this. All right, so the first cut is going to be square to my fold, how it's folded on the bolt. Okay, so I'm going to line up one of my lines on my ruler, and I'm going to go as far over as I can, while making sure I trim off a complete piece so that I get a straight edge. Okay, so I'm going to hold my ruler. And another thing is some people do this, and I find it slips more if you move your hand up as you go. I like to anchor with my elbow and my hand, and you always want at least 3 fingers like a tripod, less chance of things slipping. Okay, so cut. And I think you guys are watching this backwards, so it probably looks like I'm left-handed. I am right-handed, but that's what happens with lives. Okay, so now I've got my perfect straight edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this piece around 180 degrees. And This is where it's going to be hard to tell in video. But say I want a 2.5 inch strip. Your ruler is a 6 by 24, which is the pretty standard ruler that almost all quilters I find have. It's like the first ruler that most people get, and then you end up like me with 100 rulers. It's a story for another day. Okay, you're going to count in 1, 2.5. And you're going to line that 2.5 inch line up on the line that you just cut. And your ruler, way more accurate than your mat, so that 2.5 inch line, so the piece I'm cutting is underneath me. So if I slip also, it's okay because the piece I want is underneath. So again, elbow, hand, don't cut the mic cord, that would be bad. And cut. And now I have a pretty darn perfect 2.5 inch strip. So, hope that makes sense. Don't remember at this point the name of the person who asked that question, but I hope that explains to you how I cut my strips without using the lines on my mat. Now, next question could be, well, what if I need an 8.5 inch strip and I've got a 6 inch ruler? That's when you start to use multiple rulers. So if I needed an 8.5 inch strip and I don't have an 8.5 inch wide ruler, what I would do is take my 6 inch and then add 1, 2.5 to be 8.5. I'd line up the line here from this ruler and then this one, make sure that I'm still square up here, and you can kind of slide this one up and down to double check to make sure that you're not wiggled anywhere, and then go ahead and cut. I'm not going to cut because I really don't need an 8.5 inch strip of this fabric. 2.5 inch strips are always useful for me. 8.5 less useful, but I hope that makes sense. Now back to our regularly scheduled questions. All right. Okay. Thanks for doing this journey. I was not able to complete all the projects. Will your videos stay on the website through Nebula so I can review the videos when we have time to use those rulers for Nebula? Absolutely. These videos are going to remain on Instagram and Facebook indefinitely. We have no plans of removing them. I mean, there's always natural disasters and crazy things that who knows what could happen if YouTube and Instagram all go out of business, but we have no plans on removing them. They're planning on being up there indefinitely, so you can absolutely use them, and we will be referencing them. So when I go over, for example, month 1 of Nebula, we're going to link below the video the piecing for gazebo, because it's very similar to what you do in the beginning of month 1, and we're going to do that for each month. So even if you were part of Journey, it's going to be months ago by the time you get to these blocks. Things are not always super fresh in your mind. We're going to link to the specific videos that each month of Nebula references and ties into from Journey. We were very deliberate when we picked the 6 patterns and then the 2 bonus patterns to make sure to build your skills and to go over all the skills that I felt were paramount to making quality Nebula blocks. So we will then reference in those videos the previous videos. Hope that makes sense. So yeah. Can I show you everything that is finished? And then this person said, I really want to see Linework Science Fair. Linework Science Fair wasn't Journey, but I think I've shown some pictures on Instagram. I was asking for some binding advice. It's still not finished. I still haven't bound it. I haven't bound that thing either. That is one thing. Binding, I love it, and right now it's just not happening. There's just too much going on. But I do have some of the projects here, and this week I'm going to begin to share some photos. Teresa of Quilting is My Bliss quilted these for me, and she took pictures while she was quilting them to kind of be like a mini tutorial for you guys. Some of the other questions came through asking for advice on quilting. I'm not the person to ask for advice on quilting because I don't do most of my quilting, to be honest. I do some basic straight line stuff. Everything else I send out. So here is 2 of the seaside that I made. I made placemats. So mine are half the length of the table runner. And I made making 4. There's one more that's done and not finished being quilted. And then there's one that's still not even finished being pieced. But eventually, when these are bound, they will go on my kitchen table. And I decided to back them in the wide back. Since I sent these to Teresa, I kind of backed them all in the same wide back so she could quilt them all at the same time. but we're going to post some detailed pictures of these later today. And then, let's see if I can remember the order of these. I might get it right, might not. Then the next one I believe was Jawbreaker, and this is how Jawbreaker turned out. And so these pictures will be posted tomorrow. And again, you won't even see this because of the pillow backing, but still pretty. You'll see it every time you take the pillow form out and wash it. So that's Jawbreaker. Then came Candy Dish, I think. No. Then came Lucky Charm, I think. Lucky Charm. All right, so this is my Lucky Charm. And Teresa quilted this one, so then Tuesday, Wednesday. So this one we'll show pictures of on Thursday for you guys. But there's the finished-ish. That's relative because there's no pillow backing or binding on it yet. And then came Rock Candy. And this is one of my favorite patterns. I've made it 25 plus times now. Many of you have made it many times. It's just so addicting and fun, and fantastic. And this is Rock Candy. So then we'll show this one Friday, I guess. And then you guys have actually not seen this candy dish because I made this candy dish before we filmed the video so that Teresa could quilt it. This is for a friend of mine who's having a baby in like a week and a half. Hey, Lindsay, shout out. Baby's getting a pillow too, in case you didn't know. But so this is Candy Dish. And I did show the quilting diagram in the Facebook group of how I quilted the original Candy Dish. If you look carefully at my pattern covers, you can tell when I ran out of time close to quilt markets and things and had to quilt things myself. It doesn't happen often, but it did happen with Candy Dish, so I had to quilt them myself. So I did some crazy lines. I can't show you those original samples because I don't have them anymore. But this is the one that Teresa quilted for me. And then this is the one that I made with you guys, and it's not quilted yet, so it's still not trimmed because I quilt and then trim. So this is my line work Candy Dish that'll get quilted eventually. I'm not going to lie and pretend like it's going to be soon because I have absolutely no idea. And then this is my gazebo that I just finished with you guys last week. Super, super happy with how this turned out. It kind of really ended up matching that, which was not intentional. It just sort of evolved and happened. So again, this will get quilted at some point, and when it does, I'll share it with you. But yeah, so 5 of the 6 projects, we're going to have some nice quilting step-by-step photos that Teresa has done to show you over the next few days. So that's something to look forward to. Okay. Trying to make sure I don't miss anything on here. Can we have a size for each stage so we can double check seam allowances? It will eliminate the doubt linked to scant. This isn't something I normally do because when you're working with hexagon and diamond things, only one of the directions is a math that makes sense. So for instance, in gazebo, let's see if I can fold this up and show you. So imagine, I often refer to these as pizza slices for gazebo and rock candy. So I can tell you that this pizza slice is 10 inches tall, but I can't tell you how wide it is. It's a random number because of the angles. So when you put these two together, from one point to flat edge, it'll be 4 inches. And then when you added this piece, it became 8 inches. And it stayed that when you added those, and then it became 10 inches. So most of the things in Nebula are going to work off of 2s, so they're going to go 2, 4, 6, 8, or there's some things that are 3s, and they're going to go 3, 6, 9, 12. All of the blocks for Nebula finish at 12 inches in one direction. So everything breaks down to a multiple of 12 at some point. So for instance, this is one of the Nebula blocks, and from here to here finished dimensions is 24 after seam allowances. From a flat side to a flat side, it's 12, but from this to this, I can't tell you. I'd have to measure it. It's going to be a random number. That's just the way 60-degree angles and math turn out. The beauty of my rulers is that we focus on the height of shapes from a flat side to a flat side, as opposed to the length of a side. With English paper piecing, hexagons are measured from the length of a side, and that doesn't tell you anything about the finished dimensions. So this hexagon is 4 inches from flat side to flat side, which makes it perfectly pair with a 2-inch triangle. And then if it was 6, it would pair with a 3. And if it was 8, it would pair with a 4. So forth and so on. So, love gazebo, but the piecing is vexing me. Feel free to email me, send me pictures. I can guide you through whatever hiccups you're experiencing. Sometimes it's hard without me seeing pictures to guide you, but usually if I can see a picture, front, back, seam allowances, I can usually figure out what's going wrong. I'm here to help. Like I said, this journey, the whole point of this has been to grow your skill set so that you're confident next year. We announced Journey before I was pregnant, and it was, not at all planned this way. But the reality is I won't be here all of next year for you. Rachel will be. Have no fear. We're not leaving you hanging. But I'll be taking some maternity leave at some point. But there will still be monthly videos. So that goes into another question. Someone asked, what is the pace for the Nebula quilt along? The goal has been to give you the tools now so that you're super confident next year. That being said, you're going to come into hiccups next year. It's going to happen. It's a reality, and we will still be here for you. The ways we will be here is the Facebook group, community, the videos that we'll be linking to, as well as there will be new Nebula videos once a month, the first Tuesday of every month. And I'm recording them in the first part of next year, so don't worry, you will still get them even once the baby comes. Rachel will be posting those for you, and Rachel will be around, so we're not leaving you hanging. But we're here for you, and if you have trouble, we're here to support you. That is my job. That is my goal. One of the questions that someone else had asked was, what did they say? They said, apologies if this is supposed to be journey related, but I'd love to hear about the history of Jaybird quilts. What was your first pattern and what inspired you to create your own rulers? So really, it's a long story that, I don't want to keep you here all day. But the short version is, I was a quilter that made all the mistakes because I read badly written patterns. So I got into this to write better patterns to help people not stumble the way that I did. I worked at a shop, and my job was often to rewrite the crappy patterns so that customers could understand them, because they would always have this nice pretty picture on the front, and then you'd open them up and they'd be like blah 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 blah, and no one would understand it. And I just have that mathematical brain. Thank you, Miss Fricker, for instilling my geometry skills in me. I have this mathematical brain that just sees things. I can see quilts and I can get it and I can understand it and break it down to math. That's like my magical skill set that I have. I'm not so great with words. That's why Rachel's here, to make sure that there's no typos and all kinds of things in the pattern. But I'm good at the math and I'm good at the construction. That's what I'm good at. So I'm here to help you. That's why I got into writing patterns. That's why I launched my blog. Now, I was a quilter before I did that, but I wanted to help people. I found the most joy in my $7.50 an hour, this is 20 years ago, $7.50 an hour job, working on Saturdays at the quilt shop, helping people be more successful with their patterns. That's when I felt like the most warm and fuzzy and fulfilled inside. So that's why I went into this. And I didn't know if it was going to be a career that would eventually pay my bills, which it does, which is fantastic. And I thank you all so much for helping me get to a place where I can do that and not have a different full-time job. And even now I can do this part-time and take care of Nate, and soon to be another one. But I love helping you. That's my thing. So if you need help, reach out. We're here. If it's a question I've answered a million times, I might tell you, the pillar of fabric requirements are in every email, but I will still answer your question. So yeah, that's a little bit of background on how this all started. Tula and I are such a great match and create such beautiful projects together. How did we meet? We met at a quilt market. I was a big time fangirl before she was Tula, but she wasn't Tula. And so I was on the Tula train pretty early. I have some of every single collection that she's ever come out with, and totally fangirled, met her at quilt market, hit it off, went to dinner, and we've been friends ever since. And it's a beautiful relationship in which she shows me this amazing, stunning fabric she creates, and then sometimes I come up with some really fun quilt designs to make out of them. So Tula's a rock star, and I'm lucky to know her and get to work with her. Why was Instagram chosen for the main method of communication? It's disappointing to be left out of the prize drawing and the early breaking news information. I never heard the reasoning, but it does make many of us feel left out. So I'm sorry if you feel left out. The only thing that Instagram has been really used for over anything else is these lives, and that's because the Facebook app doesn't work as well and tends to crash on my devices, and it is hard to stream to at the same time when you're by yourself. For those who don't know, I'm in San Diego. Rachel's in Philadelphia, so it's not like she's here to help me with tech support, and I don't have another person. Right now, Nate is out riding his bike with my husband so that you don't hear him in the background. I'm by myself, so it's just easier to stream it on one device, one platform, and then we will post this later to different platforms. And as for the giveaways, it is impossible to track photos on Facebook with private accounts and not private accounts, and do they post it to the group and things. So many sew-alongs, not just us, use Instagram and hashtags as the format for giveaways. So that's what we've used, and I'm sorry if you feel left out. Giveaways should never be your motivation for participating in a sew-along. They're the icing. They're the sprinkles. They're not the cake. They're not the turkey. They're the, the little extra bit on top. And so I apologize if you feel left out. That is not my, intention. It's just, it is the way it is. We do post the videos right now on 3 platforms every Tuesday, and then we follow 3 platforms for questions and comments and feedback. So it takes a lot of time. We're doing the best that we can. Working on Candy Dish. Do you have any hints, shortcuts for getting it to all fit together? The rulers are great, and I thought I had cut everything correctly. Yeah, the tips are in the video. If you're having more trouble and you've already watched the video repeatedly and you don't seem to understand, feel free to send me an email. But there's no additional tips general tips I can give you. I jammed all of my knowledge of Candy Dish tips into that video. So if you're having a specific problem, I need to know what your problem is in order to troubleshoot and help you. But there's a lot of tips in that video on grain, on cutting all of your corners, on how to line things up. But if you need some more help, feel free to reach out. Someone said, is it possible, given the blocks in Nebula, you could scale each one down? If the sizes of all the pieces were 2 and 4 inches, could you make them all 1 and 2? I like the design and want to make it a lap quilt. First off, there is a lap quilt pattern included. Second, not everything is 2 and 4. There's things that are 3, so they'd have to be 1.5. There's a lot of uneven math, so some of the blocks will scale down, but some won't. I'm not planning on putting out a pattern with that information. If you kind of figure it out on your own, more power to you. But they don't all scale down evenly. Unfortunately, sorry that I don't design for things to be cut in half. I do have a lot of miniature quilts. It just happened to be that those things worked. It wasn't that they were designed originally so that I knew they would be miniature. Someone said, haven't used the jewel shape yet. And part of the reason we didn't use the jewel in Journey is because I didn't end up using the jewel when designing Nebula. I do love the jewel, and if you want to experiment and play with the jewel, I have a free heart block pattern that I put out at the beginning of COVID, which seems like a decade ago. And it's at bonus.jaybirdquilts.com, and you can download that free heart pattern and uses 2 jewels to make a heart. I haven't posted progress on my quilt in quite some time, but I am slowly piecing it here and there in the background in between doing the Journey projects. But here is the heart block. So it's 2 jewels and then 6 half triangles of different sizes. This is a really good skill building block. It's just not a specific skill you needed for Nebula. And we focused the Journey on what you needed for Nebula, not what you need for everything. But yeah, so this heart block is available and is a free download that you can check out so that you can do the jewel. Okay, do I have anything else? Fabric requirements for the Nebula alternative background. They're on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. I think I have covered everything that was asked in advance, and I've been answering some as they pop up in here, and I know Rachel's been answering them as well. But if you have questions that I have not yet answered, feel free to chime in with them right now, and I will answer them before I hop off. I really appreciate you guys joining me today and spending some of your your Tuesday with me. You made the small heart topper years ago. It's so cute. Yes, I do. There is a table topper with the heart as well. That's on my blog, the Sweetheart Table Topper. I think it ends up around the same size as Gazebo and Rock Candy. I don't know where I have a sample to show you right now, but it is a lot of fun, and it's got 6 hearts? 9 hearts? Either 6 or 9. I can't remember. I think it's 9. No. 9? 6, 7. Yeah, 9, I think. Don't always remember my own math. Nice break from schoolwork, yes. For those of you in school, I applaud you for doing things remotely in Zoom and adapting, and I appreciate you guys being flexible with us. You know, I don't know if we would have done Journey if it wasn't for COVID and everybody staying home, but it just seemed to be the right fit for things. I'm home, you're home, and you know, Rachel and I had a midnight light bulb and told her, and she said, you're a little loopy. Are you sure we can do this? Because some of you may know, some of you not, that I went through fertility treatments to get pregnant with Nate, and this time, so she knew I was in fertility treatments. I wasn't pregnant yet, but she knew I was in treatments, and she's like, are you sure you want to do this? And I was like, we'll be fine. I was like, haven't gotten pregnant yet, probably not going to get pregnant anytime soon anyway, do this, and then, of course, got pregnant right as we started all this, so, you know, boy or girl, we don't know. We were surprised with Nate, and we're going to be surprised again. Not really sure, and we moved Nate before I knew I was pregnant, which worked out perfect timing. So he's in his own new room. We're leaving the nursery pretty much as is. I'm just making the baby some new quilts because I'm a quilter. It's what we do. I mean, there's like 50 baby quilts in his house, but this baby needs their own brand new quilts because that's what we do. He's done so much this year. I don't know how I keep this pace. I have a really good support system between Rachel and my mom and my dad and my husband, and good team that helps take care of Nate and other things so that I can focus on this. Name the new baby Nebula. Maybe nickname? I don't know if I should like put that on the baby's birth certificate. But maybe we'll nickname the baby Nebula. Yeah, 2 Julie speeds on and off. That is true. Anyone who knows me, I'm either on or off. What size strips do we use for Nebula? It 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5. There's 6.5 in the background. I think that's it. No, there's also some like 2s and some other ones in there. It's a variety. It really is. So I'd have to like look at the pattern and read you out each month to know for sure. I would just, take at least 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, and then you'll have to cut some of the other ones or take them all. I don't really know what size dies come on the different machines because, like I said earlier, I don't use them. So, we're like songwriters. One writes the music, the other writes the lyrics. That's a good way of thinking of it. All right, I'll take that. Do I have a pattern that uses 6-inch strips? 6-inch, no. 6.5, like, because everything's half. 6.5, I think. I don't know what uses 6.5. I mean, there's 6.5 in the background of Gravity. There's 6.5 in the background of Nebula. I'm looking up at my wall right now. That's 7.5. That's 4.5. That's 3.5. 8.5. 4.5. 4.5. 3.5. 2.5. 9.5. 4.5. Yeah, I don't know about 6.5. Not really sure. Made your numbers as guests. Yeah, the numbers are awesome. Thank you for your support of Alphabet Soups. Still super love all the stuff in that book. Loving the Sesame Street. Yeah, Nate is totally spoiled and loves his quilt and his pillows. I got a few more in the works for him. We're going to do videos for Nebula like you did for Journey. Yes and no. There will be a monthly video. It's not going to be the same as Journey. You're not going to see me at the sewing machine. And you're not going to see me with a rotary cutter in my hand, but you are going to see cut pieces, and I am going to go over tips and things, and then I'm going to refer to the specific Journey video that has the same skill. That's why we did the Journey video, so that you would learn it now, and so that I don't need to refilm everything twice for the same skill sets for Nebula itself. So I did start Nebula. Thanks for everything you do. You're welcome. Are the blocks in Nebula about the size of a small Journey project? Yeah. So I can show you a quick comparison. So this is rock candy, and this is a block from Nebula. And some of the blocks have more pieces, some have less pieces. There are a variety of skills and whatnot. This one is doesn't have too many pieces, just hexagons and triangles. I think this is month 4. But as you can see, it's a little bit smaller than rock candy. So there's the size comparison for you. Any post Nebula plans? Yeah, have a baby. Besides have a baby, yes, there is one thing in the pipeline in the works that Rachel and I have been working on for a long time. That includes a bunch of quilts, and Teresa has already quilted them all, and we've all been photographed, and that's all I'm going to tell you. Whether it comes out in March or May or June or August, I have absolutely no idea. But there is something in the works. And then, yes, as Rachel just said, maybe another sew along. So we have been thinking about doing 2 things are kind of sticking in my brain right now, which is set sail. If you've never done the set sail pattern, there's multiple blocks in there. So it's a good one to do as a sew along, or doing a mini of the month sew along. I don't know if either one of those appeal to you. I might put out a survey to see what you guys are interested in. But that would be for 2022. I know this sounds like forever away, because 2021 we're going to have all of Nebula and a baby. When cutting triangles, is it better to cut off all the points for better alignment in Nebula? It rarely does it ever hurt to cut off all the points, but there's sometimes that it's just unnecessary and it does take extra time. So I tend to usually tell you, like I did with Candy Dish, when it is helpful. I'll tell you in each of the monthly videos if it is relevant or not for that month. But I can't think of when it really would hurt you. There's a couple times that lining up the points actually can help here and there, but it's few and far between. So if you are comfortable cutting the points off, kind of like I teach you guys with the diamonds, it's not really a bad thing to do. It just takes more time. 2020 plans sound awesome. Love mini box quilts. I love mini stuff too. So I have 15 mini quilts, I think, in our collection now. I think there's more than 12. I think there's 15. Will I make a mini sidekick? The answer is no, because mini sidekick would be almost too small for your fingers to use. But one thing that I've considered, sorry if I'm moving around here, hold on. And Rachel has no idea I'm about to say this and is probably like, what the heck are you doing? But one thing I've considered doing, and you guys can tell me whether or not you like this idea, is for people who like fussy cutting, I've been considering offering a template set of, they wouldn't necessarily be in this yellow, this was just a test run, of some of the key shapes, so that if you're doing alphabet soup, for instance, you could fussy cut a little Tula bird or something. So I was thinking of doing the most common size shapes. So it would be the 2.5 inch half hex, which is what was used in Lucky Charm and Gazebo, the diamond that is used in Seaside and Rock Candy, the triangle that is used all over the place with those. This is the 4.5 inch half triangle, which is used a lot in alphabet soup. And then also I didn't have them make up a sample, but the 4.5 inch hexagon, which is used in Candy Dish, and then is also used in this block. Historically, I've been leaning against templates because I like the fact that the ruler gives you, 4 shapes, 4 sizes, all in one ruler, and there's so much value to it. But I know that fussy cutting, especially with Tula fabrics, is a thing, and ever since I got these samples made up, I found them handier than I expected. So thinking that you guys might find them handy too. So I might try and see if we can make this work. If you're a fan of that, let us know. And I think someone just asked about, yeah, super sidekick. So the blocks can be done with the sidekick, but the super sidekick is needed for the background, or you need to go ahead and make templates. The intro book, which is what you get first for the pattern, has full-size templates for all the half triangles, triangles, hexagons, diamonds, and sorry if it cut out there for a second. Someone tried to call me. Didn't know that it would pause that. Sorry. So you have all the full-size templates in here. Someone said yes, large templates for Tulas. I don't think large is something that I will do because it's really easy to fussy cut the large stuff with the ruler. Like to fussy cut an 8.5 inch hex, you basically already have the template. But these little ones, it can be hard to fussy cut this shape because right now the edge of the ruler is only one of the 4 sides. So it's the smaller ones that I'd be focusing on. So we'll see if we can make that happen. And yeah, they will probably be clear and not yellow. This was just the test run. So yeah, we've been here almost an hour, which is amazing. Didn't realize we'd last this long. So I'm going to get ready to sign off and go find my son and give him a snack. But if you have any other questions that we didn't get to today, feel free to leave them in the comments. We're going to save this video to the feed and then probably upload this video to Facebook and to YouTube. So if you have any other questions, go ahead and ask them in the comments. Thanks for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next 4 weeks plus our wrap up of Journey2Nebula, and then next year starting with Nebula. So I hope everyone has, if you're in America, hope you have a nice Thanksgiving. If you're elsewhere, hope you just have a nice week. And I will be back next Tuesday with a new recorded video to start the pillowcases.